The morning started like any other Tuesday on Earth. People went to work, children went to school, and the sun rose over cities filled with the usual sounds of human life. Then the sky went dark. Ships appeared above every major city on the planet. They were massive, each one the size of a mountain, made of what looked like living crystal that pulsed with strange blue light. The ships blocked out the sun, casting shadows that stretched for miles. Within hours, every news channel, every radio station, and every social media platform was talking about the same thing. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. Admiral Zethkar stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking down at the blue and green world below. He had done this many times before. His species, the Velthari, had been conquering lesser worlds for over 3,000 years. It was always the same pattern. Show up with overwhelming force, give the primitives an ultimatum, and watch them surrender without a fight. The humans would be no different. His scouts had been watching them for decades. They were barely past the nuclear age, still fighting wars with chemical explosives and metal bullets. Their fastest ships took months to reach their own moon. They were children playing with toys, and now the adults had arrived. Signal all fleet commanders. Zethkar ordered his communication officer. Begin standard first contact protocol. On Earth, every television screen, computer monitor, and phone suddenly displayed the same image. A tall, thin alien with gray skin and 4 arms appeared. Its voice was translated into every human language at once. I am Admiral Zethkar of the Galactic HFY. Your species has developed faster than light travel without authorization from the ruling council. This is forbidden. You have 72 hours to surrender unconditionally. The alien's image shifted to show massive space stations orbiting distant stars, cities that floated in space, and fleets of warships that stretched beyond the horizon. The hegemony consists of 12 advanced civilizations. We have ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. Your resistance is impossible. Your weapons cannot harm our ships. Your technology is worthless against ours. The message continued with terms that made world leaders go pale. Complete surrender of all military forces. The dismantling of all space-based technology. Most shocking of all, a reduction of Earth's population to sustainable levels. 9 out of every 10 humans would have to die. You have 72 hours to comply. If you refuse, your species will be eliminated entirely. This is not a negotiation. This is an inevitability. The transmission ended, leaving Earth in chaos. In emergency bunkers around the world, presidents and prime ministers held desperate video conferences. General Morrison, head of the United Earth Defense Force, stared at the tactical displays showing alien fleet positions. The numbers were impossible. Earth had maybe 200 combat-capable spacecraft. The aliens had over 20,000 ships in orbit, each one more advanced than anything humanity had ever built. Our best missiles bounce off their shields, reported Admiral Chen from the Beijing Command Center. We tried hitting them with everything short of nuclear weapons. Nothing even scratched their hulls. What about nuclear weapons? Asked President Santos from the South American Federation. Computer models suggest they would just absorb the energy and redirect it back at us, Morrison replied. Their technology is thousands of years ahead of ours. We might as well throw rocks at them. The alien ships made no aggressive moves during the first day. They simply waited, massive and silent, above Earth cities. Their presence was message enough. Any attempt to attack would result in immediate retaliation. The few times human aircraft got too close, warning shots from alien weapons created new craters in empty fields. The message was clear: stay back or else. On the second day, riots broke out in major cities. Some people demanded immediate surrender to save lives. Others called for fighting to the end, no matter the cost. Religious groups proclaimed everything from the end times to the beginning of a new age. Markets crashed as the global economy tried to process the fact that humanity might have less than 24 hours left to exist. In the Deep Space Monitoring Station on Luna, Dr. Sarah Kim worked frantically with her team. They had been tracking strange signals from the outer system for months, signals that seemed to be coming from human ships that officially did not exist. Ma'am, we're getting responses to our emergency broadcasts, reported Technician Walsh. Ships are checking in from everywhere. Jupiter system, Saturn system, even from outside the solar system entirely. Kim frowned at her screens. According to official records, humanity had maybe 50 ships capable of interplanetary travel. But the signals she was receiving suggested there were hundreds of human vessels scattered throughout space, many of them far from Earth. Get me a secure line to Earth Command, she ordered. "I think there are things about our space program that even I didn't know." Meanwhile, in a secret bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, a meeting was taking place that would change the course of galactic history. The room was filled with people whose names did not appear on any public list, whose projects were buried under layers of classified documentation. Project Exodus has been running for 30 years, explained Dr. Marcus Webb, a man who officially died in a spacecraft accident 15 years earlier. While the public space program focused on the Moon and Mars, we've been sending ships much farther. Generation ships, deep space mining operations, research stations studying phenomena the hegemony probably doesn't even know exist. General Morrison studied the star charts Webb spread across the table. Red dots marked human presence in dozens of star systems. "How many people?" Morrison asked. "Conservatively, about 50 million humans are currently living outside the solar system. They're spread across 43 different star systems. Most of them are on ships or space stations. They're miners, researchers, explorers, people who volunteered to leave Earth behind to ensure humanity's survival. And they have no idea what's happening here?" Webb smiled grimly. "Oh, they know. And they're not happy about it." As the 72-hour deadline approached, Admiral Zethkar prepared for what he expected would be humanity's inevitable surrender. Every species eventually chose survival over pride. The humans would be no different. But deep in space, far from Earth, other humans were making very different preparations. They had spent decades learning to survive in the harshest environments the universe could offer. They had built ships that could travel between stars, mines that could crack open asteroids, and weapons that used the laws of physics themselves as ammunition. And now, for the first time in their scattered existence, they had a common enemy. The 72 hours were almost up. Admiral Zethkar sat in his command chair, watching the primitive human vessels approach his flagship. There were only 12 of them, small and crude compared to hegemony technology. Their engines leaked radiation, their hulls were patched with different metals, and their weapons were barely worthy of the name. It was exactly what he expected from a surrender fleet. Captain Sarah Chen gripped the controls of her ship, the Defiance. Around her, the bridge crew worked quietly, each person focused on their task. They all knew this was likely a one-way trip. Behind her, 11 other ships followed in loose formation. They were the best Earth had to offer, but against the alien fleet they looked like toys. "Admiral Zethkar," came the transmission from the human ship. "This is Captain Chen of the Terran Defense Force. We're here to deliver humanity's answer." Zethkar activated his communication array. This was always his favorite part. Watching a lesser species finally accept the inevitable. "Proceed, human. I trust you have come to announce your surrender." There was a pause. Then Chen's voice came back clear and strong. "Humanity's answer is no. Come and take it." For a moment, Zethkar thought he had misheard. No species had ever refused the hegemony's ultimatum. It was impossible, illogical, suicidal. "Human, perhaps you did not understand. Your weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Your ships cannot outrun ours. Resistance is futile." "Maybe," Chen replied, "but we're going to resist anyway." What happened next broke every rule of civilized warfare that the hegemony had followed for thousands of years. Instead of trying to shoot through the alien shields, the human ships rammed them. The Defiance, engines at full power, smashed directly into the flagship's energy barrier. The shield held, but the human ship exploded like a nuclear bomb, sending waves of energy across the alien vessel's hull. Zethkar stared in shock as the other human ships followed suit. One after another, they turned themselves into guided missiles, ramming his fleet with suicidal determination. A cargo hauler packed with antimatter took out an entire destroyer. A mining ship loaded with fusion bombs cracked the shields of a cruiser. The humans were using their own vessels as weapons, sacrificing themselves without hesitation. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, voice shaking, "we're detecting massive energy signatures throughout the solar system. Human ships are powering up everywhere." On Zethkar's tactical display, red dots began appearing. First dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. Ships were emerging from asteroid belts, from the dark side of moons, from orbits around gas giants where his sensors had detected nothing. The humans had been hiding their true numbers, but these were not the primitive vessels he had expected. Some were massive, the size of space stations. Others moved with impossible speed, their drives creating distortions in space itself. They had been watching, waiting, and now they were coming. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood in the command center of the research station Prometheus, hidden in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. For 15 years, she had been working on projects that officially did not exist. Weapons that used gravity itself as ammunition, engines that could tear holes in space, technologies that pushed the boundaries of what was thought possible. All stations report ready, her communications officer announced. Operation Wildfire is a go. Rodriguez looked at the tactical display showing the alien fleet. They were powerful, but they fought like civilized beings. They followed rules. They tried to minimize damage to their own forces. They had no idea what they were facing. Execute Wildfire, she ordered. Throughout the solar system, human weapons that had been decades in development activated for the first time. Gravitational manipulators hidden on dozens of asteroids began working together, creating artificial gravity wells that pulled alien ships off course. Fusion mines placed in seemingly empty space detonated in carefully timed sequences, creating nuclear firestorms that stretched across millions of miles. The aliens' advanced shields, designed to deflect energy weapons and kinetic projectiles, had no defense against attacks that came from the fabric of space itself. Human scientists had spent years studying black holes, neutron stars, and other cosmic phenomena. Now they were using those lessons to turn physics into a weapon. Admiral Zethkar watched his fleet take casualties for the first time in centuries. Human ships appeared from nowhere, attacked with weapons he didn't recognize, then vanished before his forces could respond. They fought like wild animals, using tactics no civilized species would consider. "Sir, we're receiving reports from the outer colonies," his communication officer announced. "Human attacks are being reported in 17 different star systems." Zethkar's blood went cold. "That's impossible. Humans don't have faster-than-light travel." "Sir, they apparently do, and they've been using it for decades." The truth was dawning on the Admiral. Humanity was not a primitive species taking its first steps into space. They were already there, spread across dozens of star systems, hidden and waiting. The fleet orbiting Earth was just the beginning. On the bridge of the generation ship New Horizon, drifting in the dark between stars, Captain Marcus Webb received the message he had been waiting for his entire life. Earth was under attack. The hegemony had made the mistake of threatening humanity's home world. "Signal all ships in the fleet," he ordered. "Begin Operation Phoenix." The New Horizon was one of dozens of massive ships that had left Earth over the past 30 years. Officially, they were colony ships carrying families to new worlds. In reality, they were mobile shipyards, weapons platforms, and military bases. Each one was home to thousands of humans who had spent their entire lives preparing for this moment. "Sir, we're detecting similar activations throughout human space," reported his tactical officer. "Mining stations, research outposts, deep space platforms. Everyone's responding." Webb smiled grimly. The aliens thought they were facing one world. They were about to discover they were fighting an entire civilization spread across the galaxy. Back on Earth, the alien bombardment had begun. Cities burned under energy weapons that turned stone to glass. But for every human facility destroyed, 10 more revealed themselves. Underground bunkers opened to reveal missile silos. Hidden bases beneath the ocean floor launched submarines that could travel through space. Even Earth's civilian population was fighting back with improvised weapons and desperate courage. Admiral Zethkar realized with growing horror that he had not started a conquest. He had started a war, and the humans were fighting it with a fury that defied comprehension. They used their own ships as missiles, their space stations as bombs, their entire infrastructure as weapons. They fought as if defeat was not an option, as if they would rather destroy themselves than surrender. "Sir," his chief science officer reported, "we're detecting unusual stellar activity in the Wolf 359 system. The star appears to be destabilizing." Zethkar stared at the data. Wolf 359 was a red dwarf star, stable for billions of years. Stars like that didn't just destabilize naturally. "Are the humans in that system?" "Yes, sir. They have a research station there." Or they did. The Admiral felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature. If the humans had found a way to weaponize stars themselves, then this war was about to become something the galaxy had never seen before. Dr. Marcus Webb stood in the control room of Research Station Prometheus, watching the data streams from dozens of monitoring devices scattered around the Wolf 359 system. For 20 years, his team had been studying the dying red dwarf star, learning its patterns, understanding its weaknesses. Now they were about to put that knowledge to use in ways no one had ever imagined. Gravitational anchors are in position, reported Dr. Kim from her station. Fusion charges are ready for deployment. The stellar manipulation network is online. Webb looked at the tactical display showing the approaching hegemony battle group. 50 ships, including 2 massive dreadnoughts, moving toward their position. With the confidence of predators hunting prey, they had no idea what was waiting for them. Begin the sequence, Webb ordered. The Wolf 359 star was already unstable, its nuclear fires slowly dying after billions of years of burning. But Webb's team had learned something the hegemony scientists had never considered. With the right push at exactly the right moment, even a dying star could be made to burn one last time with the fury of creation itself. Gravitational manipulators, devices the size of small asteroids, began their work. They had been placed throughout the system over the past decade, disguised as mining equipment and research probes. Now they worked together, creating artificial gravity wells that pulled and twisted the star's outer layers. The hegemony fleet entered the system just as Wolf 359 began to scream. Admiral Zethkar watched his sensor readings with growing alarm. The star was behaving in ways that violated everything he knew about stellar physics. Its outer layers were expanding, its nuclear core was accelerating, and massive solar flares were erupting from its surface with clockwork precision. "Sir, the humans have somehow destabilized the entire star," his science officer reported. "If this continues, Wolf 359 will go supernova within hours." "That's impossible," Zethkar replied, but his voice lacked conviction. Everything about this war had been impossible. The humans fought with weapons that shouldn't exist, tactics that defied logic, and a determination that bordered on madness. "Fleet order," he commanded. "All ships retreat to minimum safe distance. Prepare for emergency jump to hyperspace." But the humans had planned for that too. As the hegemony ships began to withdraw, the artificial gravity wells suddenly shifted their focus. Instead of pulling at the star, they began pulling at the fleet itself. Ships that had been preparing to jump to hyperspace found themselves caught in gravitational fields that twisted space around them. Their faster-than-light drives, designed to work in normal space, began to malfunction. "Sir, we can't jump," his navigation officer reported. "The gravity distortions are preventing hyperspace entry." Webb smiled as he watched the alien fleet struggle against forces they couldn't see or understand. "Detonate the fusion charges," he ordered. Throughout the Wolf 359 system, nuclear devices that had been placed with surgical precision began to explode. Not randomly, but in a carefully choreographed sequence designed to push the dying star past its breaking point. Each explosion added energy to the stellar collapse, accelerating processes that should have taken millions of years. The star began to die, and its death would be visible across half the galaxy. Wolf 359 collapsed in on itself, then exploded outward with the force of 1 billion nuclear weapons. The supernova consumed everything within several light minutes of the star's surface. The hegemony battle group, caught in the gravitational trap, had nowhere to run. 50 ships, including some of the most powerful vessels in the alien fleet, were vaporized in an instant. The explosion created a new star that would burn for millions of years, a monument to humanity's refusal to surrender. News of the Wolf 359 incident spread through hegemony space faster than light itself. For the first time in their history, an entire battle group had been destroyed by a lesser species, but that was just the beginning. On the mining station Deep Rock, hidden in the asteroid belt of the Kepler 442 system, Captain Elena Martinez received confirmation that her mission was a go. Her station wasn't really a mining operation. It was a weapons platform designed to turn entire asteroid belts into kinetic bombardments. "Begin Operation Hammerfall," she ordered her crew. Across the galaxy, similar stations received similar orders. Humanity had been building weapons for decades, hidden in plain sight as civilian installations. Mining stations that could redirect asteroid impacts, research facilities that studied black holes and neutron stars, learning to weaponize the most dangerous objects in the universe. The hegemony's home system of Veltar came under attack 3 days after Wolf 359, but there were no human ships visible on their sensors, no obvious weapons being fired. Instead, the system's asteroid belt simply began moving. Thousands of asteroids, some the size of mountains, others as large as small moons, were being pushed out of their stable orbits by devices the hegemony couldn't detect. They moved slowly at first, but gravity and momentum did the rest. Within weeks, they would impact every major planet and space station in the system. The Velthari had defenses against energy weapons and nuclear missiles. They had no defenses against mountains moving at orbital velocity. High Counselor Vexitani stood in the emergency command center on the hegemony capital world, watching tactical displays that showed her civilization under attack from an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere. Human forces had struck 17 different star systems simultaneously, using weapons that defied classification. "Report," she ordered her military advisors. "The humans have weaponized stellar collapse in 6 systems. They're using gravitational manipulation to redirect asteroid impacts in 12 others. Our fleets are reporting attacks by ships that appear from empty space, strike without warning, then vanish before we can respond." Vextani studied the reports with growing dread. "How is this possible?" "Our intelligence indicated they were a primitive species barely capable of interplanetary travel." "Our intelligence was wrong," Admiral Kethmore replied. "They've been in space longer than we realized, and they've been preparing for war. They fight without honor, without mercy, without regard for their own survival. They use their entire infrastructure as weapons. What do you recommend?" Kethmore hesitated. "Immediate peace negotiations. These humans are not like other species we've encountered. They're willing to destroy themselves to defeat us. If we continue this war, they'll take the entire galaxy down with them." But even as the High Counselor considered peace, new reports were coming in. The humans had done something in the Centauri system that was beyond comprehension. They had somehow linked 3 different stars together using artificial gravity fields, creating a chain reaction that would propagate across multiple systems. Dr. Sarah Kim watched from the observation deck of the research vessel Prometheus as her life's work unfolded before her eyes. She had spent 15 years studying the gravitational interactions between binary star systems. Now she was watching 3 stars dance to her commands, their combined gravitational fields creating a weapon that could destroy everything within 50 light-years. "The cascade effect is stable," her assistant reported. "The gravity waves will reach the hegemony core systems within 6 months." Kim nodded. The humans had learned something the hegemony never understood. The universe itself was a weapon, if you knew how to use it. Every star, every planet, every asteroid could be turned against your enemies. All it took was the willingness to think beyond the rules of civilized warfare. The galaxy was learning that humans didn't fight wars. They fought extinction events, and they were very good at it. Admiral Zethkar, now commanding what remained of the hegemony's eastern fleet, received orders to fall back to the core systems. His once mighty armada had been reduced to less than half its original strength. The humans had found ways to turn space itself against them. As his ships retreated through hyperspace, Zethkar wondered if his species had made a terrible mistake. They had come to Earth expecting to find primitives armed with crude weapons. Instead, they had awakened something that treated the laws of physics as ammunition, and the cosmos itself as a battlefield. The war was far from over. But for the first time in hegemony history, victory was no longer certain. The war had been raging for 6 months and the galaxy was dying. High Counselor Vextani stood in what remained of the hegemony's command center, watching tactical displays that showed the slow collapse of everything her civilization had built over 10,000 years. Red zones marked systems where stars had been weaponized. Yellow zones indicated areas under human attack. Green zones, showing safe territories, were shrinking by the day. "Status report," she ordered, though she dreaded the answer. Admiral Kethmore looked older than his 800 years. "The humans have destroyed 43 star systems completely. Another 67 are under active attack. Our fleet strength is down to 30% of pre-war levels. And the humans? Unknown. They seem to be everywhere and nowhere. Our best estimates suggest they're taking losses too. But they don't fight like any species we've encountered. They treat every engagement as if losing isn't an option." Vexitani studied the reports with growing horror. The humans had turned warfare into something unrecognizable. They didn't just attack military targets. They attacked reality itself, using physics as a weapon and turning the cosmos against their enemies. In the Vega system, Commander Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the research vessel Newton's Dream, preparing to implement the most ambitious human weapon yet conceived. Operation Cascade had been 3 months in the making. requiring coordination between dozens of research stations scattered across human space. All gravitational anchors report ready, her science officer announced. The quantum cascade network is online. We have positive locks on 17 target systems. Rodriguez looked at the tactical display showing the network of artificial gravity wells they had constructed. Each one was positioned at a specific point in space, calculated to create a chain reaction that would propagate across multiple star systems. When activated, the gravitational waves would destabilize every star they touched. "This is it," she said quietly. "Once we start this, there's no stopping it. 17 systems will die, including 4 hegemony core worlds." Her crew looked back at her with grim determination. They all knew the cost. Some of those systems contained human colonies. Millions of their own people would die, but the alternative was the extinction of their entire species. "Execute Operation Cascade," Rodriguez ordered. The gravity wells activated simultaneously, creating distortions in space-time that rippled outward at the speed of light. Where the waves passed, stars began to behave erratically. Some collapsed into black holes. Others exploded into supernovas. A few simply went dark, their nuclear fires extinguished by forces they couldn't resist. The hegemony watched, in horror as their home systems burned with fires that would be visible from other galaxies. Dr. Marcus Webb had been studying the quantum communication network that connected all hegemony worlds for months. The aliens used quantum entanglement to maintain instant communication across vast distances, a technology that had taken them thousands of years to develop. Now Webb was about to turn it against them. "The virus is ready for deployment," announced Dr. Chen from her workstation aboard the stealth ship Phantom. "Once we introduce it into their communication network, it will propagate to every connected system within hours." The virus wasn't designed to destroy information. It was designed to corrupt it, to turn the hegemony's own communication system into a weapon against them. False orders would be sent to military units. Navigation data would be altered, sending ships into stars or black holes. The aliens' technological superiority would become their greatest weakness. "Deploy the virus," Webb ordered. Across hegemony space, commanders began receiving conflicting orders. Fleets were told to attack their own allies. Defense stations powered down their shields at the worst possible moments. Supply convoys were redirected to empty space, leaving military units stranded without fuel or ammunition. The hegemony's carefully organized military machine began to tear itself apart. Admiral Zethkar sat in his command chair, trying to make sense of the chaos around him. His fleet had been ordered to 3 different locations simultaneously. His navigation computers insisted that 2 different stars occupied the same position. His communication system was telling him that his own flagship had been destroyed in a battle that hadn't happened yet. "Sir, we're receiving reports that the humans have hacked our quantum network," his intelligence officer reported. "All communication is compromised." Zethkar closed his eyes. The humans had found a way to turn their most secure technology against them. Every advantage the hegemony possessed was being systematically neutralized by an enemy that refused to fight by civilized rules. "Cut all connections to the quantum network," he ordered. "Return to analog communication systems," but the damage was already done. The hegemony's coordinated response to human attacks had collapsed into chaos. Individual commanders were making desperate decisions based on information they couldn't trust, while human forces struck with perfect coordination. On Earth, General Morrison stood in the rebuilt command center, watching displays that showed the true scope of humanity's space presence. What had started as a defensive war had become something far larger. Humans were revealing capabilities they had hidden for decades, weapons they had hoped never to use. "Report from the outer colonies," Admiral Chen announced. "Operation Wildfire is complete. The humans in the Proxima Centauri system have successfully weaponized their star. The resulting nova will reach 3 hegemony systems within 2 years." Morrison nodded grimly. The Proxima colony had been home to 50,000 humans. They had all volunteered to stay behind when the stellar manipulation began, knowing they wouldn't survive the process. Their sacrifice would destroy an entire hegemony sector. What about the generation ships? All 47 deep space fleets are reporting ready for the final phase. They're in position around hegemony core worlds, waiting for orders. Morrison looked at the tactical display showing the scattered human fleets. Generation ships that had been traveling between stars for decades were now revealing their true purpose. They weren't just colony vessels. They were mobile weapons platforms, each one capable of destroying an entire planet. Send the authorization codes, Morrison ordered. Begin the final assault. High Counselor Vexitani received the emergency alert just as she was reviewing peace negotiation proposals. The humans had somehow positioned major fleets around every core hegemony world simultaneously. Not small raiding forces, but massive armadas that had appeared from nowhere. How did they get so many ships past our defenses? She demanded. They've been there for years, Admiral Kethmore replied, his voice hollow. Our deep space sensors have been detecting what we thought were asteroids, comets, and space debris. They were actually human ships in stealth mode, waiting for orders. Vextani stared at the tactical displays in disbelief. The humans had been planning this war for decades, maybe longer. Every move the hegemony had made had been anticipated, countered, and turned against them. Sir, the communication officer interrupted. We're receiving a transmission from the human fleet. They're offering terms. Put it through. The main screen activated, showing a human woman in a simple military uniform. She looked tired but determined, the kind of expression worn by someone who had seen too much war. I am Admiral Sarah Chen, commanding the Terran Deep Space Fleet. The hegemony has 48 hours to accept our terms, or we will begin the systematic destruction of your core worlds. What terms? Vextani asked. Complete withdrawal from all systems containing human populations. Reparations for the damage caused to Earth. Recognition of humanity as an equal member of the galactic community. And most importantly, a guarantee that no member of the hegemony will ever threaten human space again. And if we refuse? Chen's expression didn't change. Then we finish what you started. We will burn your worlds, collapse your stars, and turn your space into a graveyard. We've already demonstrated that we can destroy entire systems. Now we're giving you a chance to save what's left of your civilization. The transmission ended, leaving the hegemony leadership in stunned silence. They had started what they thought would be a simple conquest. Instead, they had awakened something that had spent decades preparing to fight a war of extinction, and now they had to decide whether to surrender or watch their entire civilization burn. The silence in the hegemony High Council chamber stretched for long minutes. Around the curved table sat the representatives of 12 different species, each one watching tactical displays that showed their civilization balanced on the edge of total destruction. Human fleets surrounded their core worlds. Human weapons had already turned dozens of star systems into burning monuments to their power, and now humanity was offering terms. High Counselor Vexitani looked at each representative in turn. The proud Velthari, who had ruled the galaxy for millennia. The logical Zithak, whose mathematical minds had calculated the odds of victory at less than 1%. The warrior Kethrani, whose battle fleets had been reduced to scattered remnants. All of them waited for her decision. The humans have 47 hours and 32 minutes remaining on their ultimatum, she announced. We need to decide. Admiral Kethmore activated a holographic display showing the current tactical situation. Our military analysis is complete. The humans have demonstrated weapons we cannot counter. They can destroy stars, manipulate gravity on a galactic scale, and coordinate attacks across hundreds of light years simultaneously. More importantly, they have shown they are willing to sacrifice their own people to achieve victory. Representative Thurk of the Kethrani species growled deep in his throat. My people have never surrendered to any enemy. Your people have never faced an enemy like this, Vextani replied. The humans don't fight wars. They fight extinction events. They have already destroyed more of our civilization in 6 months than we lost in the previous 1,000 years of conflicts. On Earth, Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the command center that had been hastily rebuilt after the alien bombardment. Around her, displays showed the positions of human fleets throughout the galaxy, generation ships that had traveled in dark space for decades, research stations that had been disguised as civilian installations, mining platforms that could redirect asteroids. All of them were now revealed as part of humanity's hidden military infrastructure. Status report, she ordered. General Morrison looked up from his console. All deep space fleets report ready. The stellar manipulation networks are standing by. If the hegemony refuses our terms, we can begin systematic destruction of their core worlds within hours. Chen nodded, but her expression was troubled. Casualties from the campaign so far? Human losses are estimated at 12 million. That includes the colonies that volunteered for stellar manipulation missions. Hegemony losses are approximately 800 million. plus the complete destruction of 43 star systems. The numbers were staggering. In 6 months of warfare, more sentient beings had died than in most galactic conflicts spanning centuries. The humans had fought with a brutality that shocked even their own commanders, but it had been effective. The hegemony was broken. Dr. Marcus Webb entered the command center, looking exhausted after months of coordinating humanity's most advanced weapons projects. The Cascade weapons are ready for final deployment. If we activate them, the gravitational waves will destabilize every star system within 200 light-years of our current positions. Including human systems? Chen asked. Including human systems. We estimate it would destroy 90% of human space along with the remaining hegemony territories. It would effectively end this galactic civilization and force both species to start over. Chen stared at the tactical displays. Humanity had built weapons capable of destroying galaxies, and they were prepared to use them rather than accept defeat. The question was whether the hegemony understood that. In the depths of space aboard the generation ship New Horizon, Captain Elena Rodriguez addressed her crew for what might be the last time. The massive vessel had been their home for 30 years, traveling between stars in preparation for this moment. Now they were positioned near the hegemony capital world, ready to either begin a new age of peace or finish the war with one final, devastating attack. We've received our orders, she announced to the assembled crew. If the hegemony rejects our terms, we will deploy the planetary destruction devices. This ship and everyone on it will not survive the mission. The crew listened in silence. They were volunteers, people who had left Earth decades ago knowing they might never return. They had families aboard the ship, children who had grown up in space, scientists and engineers who had devoted their lives to ensuring humanity's survival, and now they were prepared to die to secure humanity's future. I want everyone to understand what we're fighting for. Rodriguez continued. This isn't about conquest or revenge. It's about making sure that no one ever again threatens humanity with extinction. We're here to ensure that our children and their children will never face what we've faced. High Counselor Vexitani received the final military reports with growing despair. Human forces weren't just positioned to attack hegemony worlds. They were positioned to destroy everything, including themselves. The tactical analysis made it clear that humanity had built weapons capable of ending galactic civilization entirely. They're not bluffing, Admiral Kethmore reported. Our intelligence suggests they have enough stellar manipulation devices to destabilize every star within 1,000 light-years. If they activate them all simultaneously, it would create a cascade effect that could destroy half the galaxy. Why would they build such weapons? Asked Representative Vorth of the Logical Zithak. Because they're not like us, Vextani replied. We've spent millennia perfecting our technology, creating ever more sophisticated weapons and defenses. The humans took a different approach. They built weapons designed to ensure mutual destruction. They would rather die fighting than live as slaves. The 48-hour deadline was approaching. Across hegemony space, civilian populations were evacuating core worlds. Military units were withdrawing to defensive positions that everyone knew were useless. The greatest civilization in galactic history was preparing for either surrender or extinction. Admiral Zethkar, commanding the last major hegemony fleet, received confirmation of his orders. If the Council chose to fight, his ships would make one final assault on Earth. It would be suicide, but it would maintain the honor of his species. If the Council chose surrender, he would oversee the withdrawal from human space. He looked at the tactical display showing Earth, the small blue world that had somehow brought down a galactic empire. The humans had hidden their true strength for decades, building weapons in secret while presenting themselves as primitives taking their first steps into space. It had been the greatest deception in galactic history. The communication alert chimed. High Counselor Vexitani appeared on his screen, looking older than her years. Admiral, the Council has reached its decision, she announced. We accept the human terms. The war was over. 6 months later, Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of the space station Unity, humanity's first diplomatic outpost in what had once been hegemony space. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she could see ships from dozens of different species docking at the station. They came as diplomats, traders, and explorers, seeking to understand the species that had changed the galaxy forever. The war had ended not with humanity's victory or the hegemony's defeat, but with the collapse of the old galactic order. The hegemony had disbanded, its member species forming independent governments. Some had chosen to ally with humanity. Others maintained cautious neutrality. A few still harbored dreams of revenge, but they lacked the power to act on them. The Terran Accords have been signed by 37 different governments, reported Ambassador Walsh, humanity's first galactic diplomat. Trade agreements are being established. Cultural exchange programs are beginning. It's a new age. Chen nodded, but her expression remained serious. What about the weapons? Most of the stellar manipulation devices have been deactivated but not destroyed. The Cascade weapons remain in standby mode. The deep space fleets are being converted to exploration and research vessels, but they can be recalled if needed. Good. The galaxy needs to remember what happened here. Not as a threat, but as a warning. Chen looked out at the stars, many of which still burned with fires humanity had lit. The war had cost millions of lives and changed the fundamental nature of galactic civilization. But it had also ensured something that no hegemony ultimatum could take away: humanity's freedom to choose its own destiny. In schools across human space, children learned about the war through carefully edited history lessons. They learned about the courage of those who had volunteered for suicide missions, the brilliance of scientists who had turned physics into a weapon, and the determination of ordinary people who had refused to surrender even when facing impossible odds. But most importantly, they learned the lesson that would define humanity's place in the cosmos for generations to come. Freedom was not given. It was taken and held with whatever force was necessary, and if threatened again, humanity would answer with fire. The galaxy had learned to respect humanity not because they were the strongest or most advanced species, but because they had proven they would rather burn the cosmos down than kneel to alien masters. It was a lesson that would echo across the stars for millennia to come. And in the deep archives of human space, the weapons that had ended an